Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. I'm doing a series of spotlights on remarkable advisors from across the country. And joining me on this segment is Alec Tuckman. He's the founder of Wealth Management Partners of Los Angeles. Alec, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be here.
Tell me a little bit about your work, and specifically, who are the types of folks that you specialize in helping?
So we specialize in working with retirees and pre-retirees, usually age 55 plus, who want to be able to retire sooner with less risk in their portfolio and income. And we do that using something we have a proprietary method called the WMP protocol, where we're able to establish an existing structure after we've gathered data, analyze that data mathematically, and figure out ways to figure out what assets are already in place and if there are any gaps needed.
So, for folks in that category, you know how people they don't know what they don't know, and if they are not familiar with your proprietary formula or system, what are the biggest concerns that are on their mind when they first come out and speak with you? What do you hear?
Well, the biggest fear is that seniors have is not death. It's actually running out of income. And if we look at things on a higher level, I mean, look, income is the outcome. Without income, we're just homeless people on the street. So knowing that's the case, we want to make sure that income is there regardless of what happens in the market. What we do at our firm that makes us different than most firms out there is the fact that we're able to generate income whether the market is going up, going down, or staying flat. And regardless of what happens, if you're a senior and you're looking to pull income, the worst thing you can do is do that in a time when the market's going down because you're essentially cannibalizing your portfolio. What we want to do is be able to have those retirees sustain themselves through that 10, 20, 30, even 40-year period where they need that income. And 30, 40 years is a long time, especially when you have factors at play like inflation and taxes.
Right on. Do you find that the folks that work with you, they understand those concepts, or are they new to them? What do you hear out there? Because we're in a world of information overload, so I'd imagine there's a lot of myths or misconceptions that kind of confuse people.
Sure. Well, it's interesting because there seems to be a huge disconnect between the interpretation that people have of the economy and the economy itself. In some cases, we have the market, which is at all-time highs, which is a conversation in itself that we can address later. But right now, people are feeling the pain. They're feeling the pinch. They see the inflation when they go to the pump. They're concerned about the fact. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles, as I mentioned, and gas is over $5 a gallon just to fill up. Then we look over to the supermarket. We see different foods that we once were paying, you know, I don't know, $3 for is now $5, and it starts to add up as we go through life in every element, whether that's again gassing up, buying food, taking care of our children. It doesn't matter. Everything has gotten more expensive, and what we're looking at is something similar, not to the extreme, hopefully, but something similar in the '70s, where we saw again something very similar, where we saw rising costs of gas, we saw rising inflation, we saw, I mean, that was to the extreme, that was stagflation. But again, at 7%, this is the highest it's been in 40 years. So again, people are feeling very uneasy. They're very nervous, which is even more reason you need to start taking more defensive strategies to be able to maintain your portfolio.
So, is there a light then at the end of the tunnel? What can you show them? In particularly, maybe give me a high level view of some of the ideas that you might share with them that can help them kind of combat these challenges.
Sure. So by working with a lot of high net worth investors over the years, we've had an opportunity to learn about new tools, new strategies that you normally wouldn't hear of from a typical broker or a typical advisor off the street. So what we want to do is be able to, number one, hedge against inflation. 7%, that's a lot. let's not even sugarcoat that. That's bad. So what we want, and the good news is, I don't think it's going to be runaway inflation based on what we're seeing. The Fed has said it's transitory. I don't know if that's true or not, but we'll see. Time will tell. The other challenge we have now, we have the Federal Reserve saying that they may raise interest rates 3 times next year. If that's true, then again, we may see some changes in the housing market as well as possible volatility in stock market like we saw in 2018. So knowing that's the case, we have to invest differently now than we did let's say in 2020 or 2019. Times are definitely changing, and today's economic climate is very different, even than it was definitely last year with COVID, but even 2 or 3 years ago.
So it sounds like with this pandemic, it's shifted slightly your approach towards these strategies. Has it really done that, and or is it really just shifted the mindset of your clients and prospects?
So we give clients the opportunity to not just scale their wealth, but also protect it. And there are ways that we can talk about if they were to come in, for example, like option trading. There are things we can do that are more defensive, less aggressive. Not to say we can't do those aggressive strategies, but our specialty is, again, being able to generate that income for the people that want to retire sooner. They're maybe burned out, retired of their job, they can't stand their boss, you name it. Uh, we want to be able to help those individuals who are looking to take a step back. And again, we mentioned before, income. Income is the outcome. We want to make sure we're guaranteed that. Well, again, I can't use the word guarantee for compliance purposes, but the closest word I can use for guarantee, that's what we want to do, is protect those assets. And we want to make sure that, again, I never want to have the conversation with my clients who can run out of money.
So, Alec, what inspired you to get into this field and help people in this area of their life? How did you get started?
Well, it's funny. I come from a very strong background of financial professionals. Both of my parents were award-winning economists. My brother's a day trader. My wife is a mortgage banker. My father ran a successful foundation, and my uncle was a successful entrepreneur. So I've been learning how money makes money since I was in diapers. When I was younger, of course, I pushed away from it because all I cared about was the next, I guess, Marvel character. But as time went by, I saw the value. I saw how important it was, and all of those life lessons that I have acquired over my lifetime, I look forward to bringing to my clients, and I have brought to my clients. So I remember even being a kid, I would read something. My parents got me Penny Power magazine. All these things, all these lessons I've learned, all finally paid off as I get into my more mature earning years. And having been able to work with high net worth investors and finding out, I don't say inside secrets, but just tools I normally wouldn't learn about watching the news or educating myself. I mean, let's Google investments. How many billions of results is that going to give you? So, by understanding, based on experience, based on people we've worked with, based on learning new assets from our fellow workers, our fellow advisors, and having gone and worked for several different firms, it's given me a great repertoire of tools to work with for our current clients.
Gosh, it really is in the blood, in your blood. So, and even if you try to fight it and run away from it, it's going to always pull you back because it's going to be your passion. So that's terrific. Alec, before I ask you my last question, for folks listening that they know they need to get their financial houses in order but don't quite know where to start, what would you say is the most important thing that they should consider when choosing an advisor to work with?
First thing is trust. You want to make sure you're working with someone you can rely on. As someone who holds the AIF designation, for example, we're an accredited investment fiduciary. You want to be able to sit down and make sure that these people are working in your best interest, not their own. So again, you want to work with fiduciary. That's first and foremost. Number two, you want to make sure they have the experience. I've been working in the industry in a variety of different capacities since 1994. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. The biggest challenge is the mentors of today's advisors came out of the 80s and 90s, where we only understood a roaring market. We are living in very different times now. And when you look at just as recent as March of 2020, if you look at 2008, those what they call black swan events, when we have a devastating financial event that triggers a big drop in the market. You have to understand how to invest with this volatility in mind. You have to understand that things like inflation, things like changes in the tax laws, really can take their toll on your portfolio. Even when you think you're fine, you need to take that litmus test of sorts and be able to talk to someone and make sure you're on track.
Great insight. Alec, for folks listening that would love to speak with you, how do they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Sure. Very easy. You can either call us. Our number is 844-242-0073, or you can go on our website, www.wmplainc.com. It's W as in wealth, M as in management, P as in partners, L as in lost, A as in Angeles. and INC, Igor, Nancy, Charlie.com.
Terrific. Alec, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with my audience today. You've been wonderful, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thanks, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Alec Tuckman, he's the founder of Wealth Management Partners of Los Angeles. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.